Hi, I have assembled a collection of statements by our founding father Thomas Jefferson that provide the best evidence of our nation's descent into absolute despotism. We truly need to look no further than the words of our nation's chief architect to establish the truth of our present situation. These statements are as horrifying as they are incontrovertible. If you can add 1 and 1 equals 2, then you cannot mistake their meaning or avoid their consequence. So I will be continuing in this effort to bring some more clarity with respect to our Father's words. I will begin with I have never been able to conceive how any rational being could propose happiness to himself from the exercise of power over others. That's pretty well explicitly clear statement. Force is the vital principle and immediate parent of despotism. Understanding that when our government agents and military and or police force and make efforts of force upon us, that it is the beginning of despotism in its purest form. Those characters wherein fear predominates over hope may apprehend too much from instances of irregularity. They may conclude too hastily that nature has formed an insusceptible of any other government than that of force, a conclusion not founded in truth nor experience. That was a Jefferson written letter to James Madison in 1787. Leave no authority existing not responsible to the people. This is a very clear and succinctly specific reference to the Federal Reserve System, in fact, because it is not beholden to any kind of oversight or regulatory apparatus by the Congress or any of the branches of our constitutional government. They are completely independently operated and without any oversight or congressional inquiry, and they hold their meetings in secret, and we are left to, take whatever they tell us, and that's why it's such an evil enterprise. The force of public opinion cannot be resisted when permitted freely to be expressed. The agitation it produces must be submitted to. Jefferson to Lafayette in 1823. Lafayette being our French helper in our revolution, French general who helped our revolution. What country can preserve its liberties if its rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance? The spirit of resistance to government is so valuable on certain occasions that I wish it to be always kept alive. It will be often be exercised when wrong, but better so than not to be exercised at all. If the appeal to arms is made, it will depend entirely on the disposition of the army, whether it issues in liberty or despotism. In other words, when we get to the point of a revolutionary cry, which I absolutely believe will come to pass in the near future, in the next 2 years, it will be entirely dependent upon whether the military, helps us or, fights against us. Can it be believed that a grateful people will suffer individuals to be consigned to execution whose sole crime has been the developing and asserting of their rights? We can't at all accept that, and that's what's happening. People are getting locked up, put into jail without cause and without due process, and eventually even just disappear. We are not to expect to be translated from despotism to liberty on a featherbed. Thomas Jefferson to Lafayette in 1790. Again, a statement boldly expressing the notion and the idea that this is going to be a fight. It's going to take blood and sacrifice. If it comes to the point of revolution, it's not going to be easy. And it needs to be well understood that this is something that you have a responsibility to do and to stand up for, and you will fight for that. And you must fight for that, because if you don't, you lose everything. And it's better to die, in the process and in the fight for your freedom and your righteous position of liberty than it is to live as a captive or a slave in a nation that is desperate. Single acts of tyranny may be ascribed to the accidental opinion of the day, but a series of oppressions begun at a distinguished period and pursued unalterably through every change of ministers, to plainly to prove and deliberate, systematic plan of reducing a people to slavery. So we see this is a very absolute reference in our own day. This was written in 1774 by our founding father, which it's clearly evidenced in our present circumstance today. We can take that statement and ascribe the tyranny that is not accidental, because it is a unalterable period of pursued and distinguished through every change of minister, from Bush to Obama, and Clinton. It goes on. Each and every single one of these individuals and their presidency and their administrations have pursued this deliberate reduction and systematic disintegration of civil rights and constitutional rights. Even as we speak, it continues to be done. So it is a absolute reflection of tyranny in the making and despotism on the rise. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. Understand and kind of embrace that notion that you are doing a duty to yourself, and it is a worthy conviction and position to take with respect to God, that you are not in any way fighting against something that is, unworthy to fight for, because here our chief architect of our nation's founding is telling us in no uncertain terms that these are the reasons and why we do these things and what we should do in the event that we have to. Corruption of principles, and against that is the duty of good citizens to be ever on the watch, and if the gangrene is to prevail, at last, let the day be kept off as long as possible. If revolution and war is necessary, let's just hope that we can keep it off as long as possible. The flames kindled on the 4th of July, 1776, have spread over too much of the globe to be extinguished by the feeble engines of despotism. On the contrary, they will consume these engines and all who work them. Let's hope, and hope fervently, and that will be the case. A good government becomes the blessing to a whole earth. It's welcomed to the oppressed, restraining within a certain limits the measure of their oppressions, but should even this be counteracted by violence on the right of expatriation, the other branch of our example then presents itself for imitation, to rise on their rulers and do as we have done. So those are very briefly some statements, additional statements by Thomas Jefferson, with direct respect to, the duties of citizens once they are enlightened to the truth and the reality of the particular situation as it is, and to understand that that reality and that situation is clear and present danger to the constitutional apparatus that has been laid out for us, that we are supposed to be enjoying as a result, and all of these things that are happening and that are continuing to happen, and ultimately will lead to a despotic, martial law, tyrannical, fascist state. Look around you and see and understand that you have now only but to have a call to arms, to try and use your resistance and your voices as loud as possible against all of these things in very clear and absolute terms, and absolutely do not accept any of it. Try and get it.